The NBA's Most Improved Player award is something that should be used to celebrate a player who has made a dramatic jump in on-court production relative to their career up to that point. Established in the 85-86 season, more often than not, it's been given to players who either didn't have the greatest expectations going into that particular season and took a huge leap, players who found themselves in new situations and blossomed into stars, and even young players whose untapped potential is finally reached and are on the verge of becoming one of the league's best among other reasons. But a handful of times throughout NBA history, especially recently, we've seen a handful of players win the award over other very deserving prospects. The Most Improved Player award is broken, but it has another opportunity to correct itself this season. Let's talk about it. My name is Caleb, and individual accolades in the NBA will always be debated no matter what the award is, but the Most Improved Player award has been one of the most debated over the last handful of seasons in the basketball community. With the history of this award being one of the more unique in the NBA landscape, I want to talk about where I think things may have gone wrong and how it can be fixed, starting with this season's potential winner. We should always celebrate improvement, but it's always going to be relative to the context of a specific career. The Most Improved Player award is maybe the most niche among the individual accolades a player can receive. Not only do you have to take into account stats and impact on your team like the rest of the awards, but career context is also a huge part into determining who should receive the award as the NBA's Most Improved. Prior to 2000, the league had a bit of trouble determining the criteria for this award. Before Most Improved became an official award in 1985, the NBA had its own version of the Comeback Player of the Year award, similar to what the NFL has now. But wanting Most Improved to differentiate itself from Comeback Player of the Year, the league had a very simple fix for the award. Give it to an up-and-coming player with a dramatic improvement from the year before. But there are a lot of players who make improvements in an NBA season. It's not easy to narrow down just a handful of players that are eligible for this award, but these players should have improvements that are not only unexpected, but enough to where you can't ignore them for eligibility. Throughout the 39 times this award has been given out, only Tracy McGrady has made the Basketball Hall of Fame, but even when he won it, he wasn't quite on that trajectory just yet. T-Mac won it in his first season in Orlando after coming over from Toronto, upping his points per game from 15 to 26, becoming an NBA All-Star and making All-NBA second team. He was really the first player to win it that was going to potentially have a superstar career rather than just maybe making a couple All-Star and All-NBA teams. As we got further from McGrady winning it in 2001, there were way more players like him that ended up winning the award. Players who were either borderline or legit all-stars that would go on to have careers that will more than likely get them into the Hall of Fame, but you can't really argue against them and their reasons for why they won it at the time. McGrady was a one-time all-star when he won. Players like Kevin Love, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, who all won the award, won it really before they had any other accolades. I'm not sure anyone really predicted any of these players, maybe outside of the niche early Giannis believers, thought that any of these players were going to become future Hall of Famers. I think the 2010s was probably the best decade for this award and its winners because there's a great mixture of players who either didn't have the highest expectations regardless, took huge leaps, and contributed to winning teams when nobody expected it, and players who won and ended up becoming some of the league's most elite players. But come the 2020s, so far we've had a weird mixture of otherwise deserving players and winners and nominees who were head scratchers. I'm perfectly fine with Julius Randle winning in 2021. He was the main catalyst into getting the Knicks back to playing winning basketball, and you can't argue against a player who significantly bumped all of his statistical averages, became an NBA All-Star, and made All-NBA for the first time in his 7th season. The 2022 season, one of my personal favorite NBA seasons ever, had one of the first real blemishes in recent history of the award. Ja Morant was voted as the Most Improved Player that year, and while he definitely did improve in every major category and led the Grizzlies to the playoffs for the second year in a row, he was already being positioned as one of the NBA's best point guards. Not only that, he was the number 2 pick in the draft just 3 years earlier, a season where he'd finished as the Rookie of the Year. To have a Rookie of the Year and Most Improved on your resume within 3 years of your career is one of the most unique individual accolade combinations that a player is ever going to have. I remember the reactions to it back then, and everyone was pretty shocked that he ended up winning it because we had never really seen a Most Improved winner like him. Even Ja himself felt as if someone else deserved it over him, so he ended up giving the trophy to his teammate Desmond Bane, who himself finished 5th in Most Improved voting that year. But I think the player with the best argument to have won it that season was DeJounte Murray. He did end up coming in second place in most improved voting, but his 2022 season was when he really put it all together as a player. He had been known as one of the better perimeter defenders in the NBA, but this was the season when he'd step up his game on the offensive end and have the best all-around season he's had in his career so far. Averaging a near triple-double, he had come a long way since being a late first-rounder in 2016. He'd make his first All-Star appearance in 2022 and lead the league in steals that year, and at least for most of the season was a clear favorite to win most improved, but the voters thought otherwise and it ended up going to Ja. In 2023, I think most people were fine with Lauri Markkanen winning. At his best, he had an average start to his career to be a lottery pick after coming in with fairly high expectations in Chicago in 2017, but he was never a bad player. And then after a relatively underwhelming year in Cleveland in 2022, he'd become a first-time All-Star as the main focal point in Utah's offense in 2023. While the team as a whole wasn't very good, Markkanen took advantage of all the touches he was getting as the main option and went 25 points and 8 rebounds on 50% shooting in a very stacked Western Conference. SGA came in second in that year's most improved voting, but he was steadily improving every season and also came in 5th in MVP voting in 2023, and without the obvious jump in production from Shea, I do think Markkanen was the right choice this season. But 2024, I think, is where they got it wrong again for the second time in 3 years. And don't get me wrong, I think Tyrese Maxey is one of the best guards in the NBA, and depending on what the Sixers do with Embiid and Paul George in the near future, Philly could probably build around Maxey. But he shouldn't have won most improved last season, and it's not his fault. Maxey made his first big leap in year 2 and then became the Sixers' secondary scorer after James Harden was traded to the Clippers just as the 2024 season began. Similar to SGA's most improved case the season before, Maxey's improvement was more steady, just a little bit more dramatic than Shea's. He'd become an all-star for the first time, and his situation in Philly was looking great as one of the better teams in the East. But again, the second place finisher in most improved voting, Coby White, probably should have gotten it and fit the ideal most improved candidate, similar to past winners. Another lottery pick who hadn't quite made that jump yet and had even regressed a bit in 2023 with less playing time, made up for it and then some with his 2024 season. He may have had the most unexpected most improved case that year, which in my opinion should have made him the favorite over a player like Maxey. Maxey had a great season the year before he won the award, but Coby White had a season akin to a backup point guard. So in my opinion, I think Coby White should have won it in 2024, which brings us to a similar dilemma for the 2025 season. With a week left in the regular season, the two favorites to win most improved were Cade Cunningham and Dyson Daniels, with Daniels currently being a slight favorite. All signs are pointing to the 2025 Most Improved Player Award going to one of these two players, and if the award goes to the player that it should go to, in my opinion, it should go to Dyson Daniels. Daniels, after being a lottery pick in 2022 to the Pelicans, had a fairly underwhelming tenure there. Showed signs of being decent on the defensive end, but never particularly stood out anywhere on the court when he did play. It looked like he was heading towards bust territory, especially because the Pelicans, at best, had been very average since he had been on the roster, and he still couldn't really establish himself as part of the team's future. But after he was traded in the deal that brought DeJounte Murray to the Pelicans, he'd end up in Atlanta and finally get the opportunity to show what he could be when reaching his full potential. He'd become one of the best defenders in the league, and in turn, received one of the best nicknames in recent memory, the Great Barrier Thief. He'd averaged career highs in pretty much every statistical category, including leading the league in steals, deflections, and stocks, and will no doubt be an all-defensive first-team selection. He was an early favorite for most improved, but he's also more than likely going to end up top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting as well. On the other end, Cade Cunningham for the longest time this season was the favorite to win most improved. Cade has established himself as a top 5 point guard this year and made the leap to becoming an NBA All-Star for a first time. Not to mention he spearheaded one of the greatest turnarounds in NBA history with this year's Pistons team after they were historically bad in the 2024 season. But as a former #1 overall pick with all the tools to be great, we expected Cade to be here around this time in his career. This is his 4th season overall and his 3rd season playing the majority of the year. And while he has also improved in all areas of his game, the Most Improved award just shouldn't apply to players like him at this point in his career. The NBA could course correct by giving Dyson Daniels the Most Improved Player award this season, and hopefully gets back on the right track of choosing the most deserving players for the award. I know the criteria for Most Improved is entirely subjective, and it's not to say that a #1 overall pick like Cade can't win Most Improved at some point in their career, Which brings us back to career context and what improvement means relative to that specific career. The Most Improved Player award has been shaky over the last few years, and if the award wants to keep the essence and the spirit of what it was originally established for, it needs to really get back to choosing players that fit the criteria based on the context of their career. My name is Caleb. If you want to support the channel, please like and subscribe. Appreciate y'all for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.